That stuck with me. It's something I've turned over in my head 1,000 times since. Because if I'm honest, I've been blaming myself too. I'm not even sure where to begin. I found out something about my wife that completely shattered my perception of her, of us. But somehow, the part that's messing me up the most is that I can't stop thinking about him. The other man. Her husband. Let me explain. My wife and I have been together for 8 years, married for 5. We live a fairly normal life, small town, modest home, 2 dogs, no kids, we're trying. She's a freelance web designer and always had some travel involved. Conferences, client visits, the occasional retreat. Nothing out of the ordinary. Or so I thought. About 6 weeks ago, I got a Facebook message from a guy named Evan. He said, "Hey, I know this is weird, but I think we're married to the same woman." I stared at that message for 5 full minutes before I even processed the words. My first instinct? Scam. But he sent photos of her with him in a different city, wearing a wedding ring. I thought I was being pranked until I confronted her, and she didn't even deny it. She went pale, then just sat down, quiet. I asked her, "What the hell is going on?" And she whispered, "I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how." Turns out, she'd been leading a double life for nearly 4 years. Evan lived 2 states away. She met him at a conference, things escalated fast, and she somehow built an entirely separate identity around him. She'd go back and forth, claiming work trips, all while pretending to be single when she was with him. Eventually, he proposed, and she said yes. And she married him. Legally, I was the first husband, which makes her marriage to him invalid. But emotionally, I was the second life. He was the dream. I was the safety net. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hate her. I do hate her. But here's the twist I wasn't expecting. After the initial blow-up, Evan and I stayed in touch, just to compare timelines. Notes. Try to make sense of her lies. We discovered all the overlaps, all the contradictions, all the times she said she was too busy or at a silent retreat, when really, she was with me or with him. But here's the thing. Evan's a good guy. Like, genuinely. Funny, kind, smart. Way more accomplished than me. I thought I'd hate him, the other guy. But he was also betrayed. Somehow, in all our late-night conversations and trauma dumping, we became friends. It's the weirdest thing. One night, he said something that stuck with me. She played 2 different roles. She was sweet and romantic with you, spontaneous and wild with me. I don't think either version was fake. I think we just got different parts of her. That hit me harder than I thought it would. Because I miss my version of her. I miss the girl who made dumb puns at breakfast, who danced barefoot in the living room, who planned scavenger hunts for my birthday. But I also see now, she wasn't whole with me. And maybe she wasn't whole with him either. Evan and I both agreed to cut ties with her. No contact. Let the lawyers handle the legal mess. But he and I? We still talk. It's bizarre. This strange bond formed from mutual devastation. Last week, we actually met up. Just 2 ex-husbands grabbing beers, laughing about the time she claimed to be volunteering in Costa Rica when she was really at a spa with neither of us. And I realized something. He understands what I went through better than anyone else ever could. So now I'm sitting here, wondering what the hell this all means. Why do I feel more emotionally connected to the man my wife betrayed me with than to her? Life is weird. After that night at the bar, Evan and I started talking more regularly. Not just about her, but about everything. Our jobs, families, music, life stuff. It was surreal at first. Every time I got a message from him, I half expected it to be angry or cold or cut off. But it wasn't. It felt like we were healing. Together. Meanwhile, my now ex-wife kept trying to reach out. Through email. A handwritten letter. Even called my mom. I didn't respond. Not once. She begged for one conversation, but I couldn't give her that. Because the truth was, I was afraid of what I'd say, or what I'd feel. I didn't trust myself around her. Not anymore. One afternoon, Evan sent me a message. You ever wonder if we were enough for her? Or if she just wasn't enough for herself? That stuck with me. It's something I've turned over in my head 1,000 times since. Because if I'm honest, I've been blaming myself too. Wondering if I missed red flags. If I was too boring, too trusting, too available. But the more I unpacked it, the clearer it became. This wasn't about us not being enough. It was about her being too many people at once, and lying to all of them. Still, there's this strange grief. I don't just miss her. I miss who I was when I was with her. I miss feeling sure of things. Safe. Grounded. Loved. Even if all of it was based on lies. About a month after our meetup, Evan invited me to a small show in his city, a local band we both liked. I said screw it and drove down. That night, something shifted. We weren't just two guys recovering from the same disaster. We were comfortable, laughing in a way that didn't feel weighed down by betrayal. Just two people connecting over something real. Something new. And here's where things get complicated again. At the end of the night, we were walking to our cars. It was late. Cool breeze. Empty streets. I thanked him for inviting me. He looked at me, and without hesitation, said, "You know, I'm glad I met you. Not just because of her. Despite her." I nodded, but I couldn't say anything. My throat tightened. And then he leaned in, slow, careful, and kissed me. I didn't pull away. I kissed him back. It only lasted a few seconds, but it changed everything. Now I don't know what this is. I'm not even sure what I am. Straight? Bi? Confused? All I know is, for the first time in a long time, I feel something real. Something that isn't wrapped in lies or pretending. Just honest connection. So yeah, my wife lived a double life. But in the aftermath, I found something unexpected. Maybe even something better. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I regretted what happened, but because I didn't know what it meant. I kept replaying the kiss over and over in my head. The way his eyes lingered just a little longer afterward. The warmth of his hand brushing mine before we said goodbye. I wasn't confused by the moment. I was confused by how right it felt. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Evan. I hope I didn't cross a line. I just felt something. And I think you did too. I stared at the screen for a long time. I could have ignored it. Brushed it off. Said I was drunk or tired or emotional. But I didn't. I wrote back. You didn't cross anything. You were honest. I felt it too. We met up again 2 weeks later. No pretense this time. We didn't talk about her. We didn't talk about what went wrong in the past. We just existed in that strange, fragile space between something ending and something new beginning. And slowly, something did begin. We started dating. Quietly at first. No social media, no big announcements. Just us figuring out what this was, who we were now. And it wasn't without challenges. I had my own internal battles. With identity, with trust, with fear. And Evan, well, he was carrying his own grief too. But we made space for each other's broken pieces. Sometimes we'd laugh about the absurdity of it all. How two men, betrayed by the same woman, ended up finding something good, maybe even healing, in each other. It felt like a plot twist no one would believe. But it was real. A year later, we moved in together. It wasn't perfect. We had fights, doubts, moments where the shadows of the past crept in. But unlike before, everything was on the table. We were honest, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. Sometimes I wonder if she knows. If she ever found out that the two people she lied to most ended up building a life together. Not in spite of her betrayal, but as a strange result of it. I don't hate her anymore. I don't really feel anything toward her. Because what started as a heartbreak turned into something much more powerful, a second chance. Not just at love, but at truth, at self-awareness, at peace. If you told me back then that the man who helped expose my wife's lies would become the man I'd fall in love with, I would have laughed in your face. But life's funny like that. Sometimes the wreckage clears a path you never would have dared to walk. And sometimes, the person you're meant to find is standing right beside you in the ashes. It's been 3 years since Evan and I moved in together. Some days, it still hits me how surreal it all is. Like yesterday, when we were putting up shelves in the hallway. Evan was holding the leveler, cursing under his breath because I kept insisting the shelf was crooked. He looked up at me, totally exasperated, and said, "I swear, living with you is like living with a conspiracy theorist who thinks the walls are lying." And I laughed. A real, deep belly laugh. The kind I didn't have for years during my marriage. That moment, stupid as it was, stuck with me. Because it's in the small, domestic things that I see just how much has changed and how far we've come. But not everything was easy. For a while, we didn't talk about her at all. as if saying her name out loud would reopen old wounds. But the silence was its own kind of infection, slow and quiet, but spreading. It wasn't until we bumped into her at a grocery store that everything came to the surface again. She was with someone. A guy, younger, loud, wearing an expensive jacket like a costume. She saw us. Did a double take. I swear, for a split second, her face twisted, like she'd just seen a ghost. We nodded politely. Nothing more. But in the car afterward, Evan was quiet. Finally, he said, "Do you think she ever felt guilty?" I didn't have an answer, and I realized it didn't matter. Not really. Because guilt wouldn't change anything. Regret wouldn't erase what she did. What mattered was who we became in the aftermath. We talked for hours that night. About the past. About the choices we made. About how our pain had created something we never expected. And how we weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. He told me something I hadn't heard before. That during the last months of his marriage, before everything fell apart, he used to sit in the bathroom with the door locked, just to have 5 minutes of silence. 5 minutes where he didn't have to pretend to be okay. And now? Now, he says he doesn't need silence to breathe. He has me. It's strange how betrayal gave us the gift of something real. Something neither of us had when we were doing everything right. We both played the parts we thought we were supposed to. Husband, provider, fixer, forgiver. Now we're just people. Messy, honest, learning. Sometimes, I still get emails from old friends who don't know the whole story, asking if I've moved on, if I've found someone. I usually just say, "Yeah, I found someone." But the truth is bigger than that. I found peace. I found myself. And I found a kind of love that wasn't born from spark or fantasy, but from ashes, from ruin, from the raw truth that came when everything else was stripped away. And honestly, it's the strongest thing I've ever known. A couple of months after that run-in with her, I got a message. It was a random Tuesday. I was on my lunch break, scrolling mindlessly through old emails, when I saw it, buried in my spam folder, of all places. Subject line, "Can we talk?" It was from her. My chest tightened. I hadn't seen her name in years, not since the divorce papers had been finalized and we'd split everything with clinical precision. I hovered over the email for a moment, then clicked. It was short. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to talk to you. It's not about us. It's about something I found that you need to see. Please, just one conversation." I stared at it for what felt like an hour. I didn't tell Evan right away. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I didn't know how he'd react, or if I even wanted to open that door again. We were good. Really good. Why risk it? But it gnawed at me. The vagueness of it. The nerve she had. The possibility that she was manipulating me again, and the fear that maybe, just maybe, it was something real. I finally showed Evan. He read the message without blinking. Then he just looked at me and said, "Do you want to meet her?" I didn't answer right away. Eventually, I nodded. Not because of her. I want to know what she's talking about. Closed the door completely. He surprised me. "Then I'll come with you." We met her at a cafe. Neutral territory. Public enough to keep everything polite. She looked older. Tired. Something in her face had changed, softer, less defensive. I wondered if life had humbled her, or if she was just playing a new role. She pulled a small envelope from her bag and slid it across the table. Inside was a stack of printed emails. From him. Evan's ex-husband. Turns out, they'd been in contact again purely by accident, she claimed. A mutual friend's wedding, some conversation that led to another, and suddenly he was oversharing. Venting. Regretting. The emails were detailed. He confessed to cheating multiple times. Not just with her, but with others. Admitted he resented Evan's success. That he was jealous. That part of him wanted to be caught, because he couldn't stand feeling like he was the one left behind. Evan sat stone-faced as he read them. Then he pushed them aside. Calmly. "I already knew," he said. She blinked. "What?" I didn't need a confession. I lived it. There was a silence between them, not angry, just final. Then he turned to me, gently touched my hand, and said, "Let's go." We left. Later that night, lying in bed, I asked him if it had helped. Seeing her. Hearing all that. He turned toward me and said, "It didn't change anything, but it reminded me how far I've come, and how far I never want to go back." We burned the emails the next day, together. And in the ashes, we found closure. The emails were gone, symbolically and literally. We stood in the backyard fire pit, watching the last edges curl into black. Evan didn't say much. He didn't need to. That kind of silence, the comfortable kind, meant everything to me. After that, life got simple. In the best way. We found a rhythm. Grocery runs. Movie nights. Sunday mornings with too much coffee and not enough laundry done. The kind of domesticity that used to bore me now felt like peace. But peace doesn't mean perfect. One evening, after dinner, Evan brought something up that knocked the wind out of me. "I've been thinking," he said, drying a plate, "about fostering." I blinked. "Kids?" He nodded, almost cautiously. "Not babies or anything. Maybe teens. Older ones. The ones nobody wants." It hit me like a wave. Not because I didn't want it, but because it had never even occurred to me that he might. We had both come from breakage. And somewhere along the line, I think I assumed we'd just keep things between us. Safe. Contained. "You really want to?" I asked. "I think I do. I think we have something. Stable. Loving. And there are kids out there who've been through worse than we have. Maybe we could do some good." I didn't answer right away. The thought of sharing our little bubble, letting someone in, someone broken and hurting, it was scary. But then I looked at Evan, and I remembered what it felt like when he let me in. When he saw the worst of me and stayed anyway. "Let's try," I said. The process was long. Home visits. Background checks. Endless forms. But somehow, each step made us stronger. Like building something together, one brick at a time. 6 months later, we got our first placement. His name was Jordan. 16. Quiet. Mistrustful. He'd been bounced from house to house, too many times to count. He didn't talk much the first week. Barely ate. Didn't make eye contact. But then one night, Evan fell asleep on the couch with a book on his chest. I caught Jordan peeking over, reading the title. "Want to borrow it?" I asked. He shrugged. I left it on the table the next morning. 2 days later, it was gone from the table. A week later, he asked if we had more. It was slow. Painfully slow. But one night, after dinner, Jordan stayed at the table instead of retreating to his room. And he said, "You guys are weird." I laughed. "Thanks." "No," he said, smirking. "Like, not fake." That's rare. I didn't know what to say to that. But Evan did. He just nodded and said, "We've been through fake. We're done with it." Jordan stayed. Longer than any of his other placements. And eventually, he started calling our house home. People talk a lot about love stories. They think it ends at the kiss, or the wedding, or the happily ever after. But that's not real life. Real life is made in the mornings when no one's watching. In the small decisions. In showing up, over and over again. Evan and I weren't looking for each other when we met. We were just two broken men standing in the ruins of our pasts. But somehow, we started building. And we didn't stop. It's funny how quickly a house becomes a home. Not because of the walls, or the furniture, or the framed photos. Although we were slowly collecting those too. But because of the people inside it. And how they make you feel. Jordan changed things. Not in a bad way. Just deeper. There were new sounds in the house. A door closing at 2 a.m., the muffled bass from headphones, the slam of frustration after a hard day at school. But also laughter. He had this quiet kind of wit that snuck up on you. One night, he roasted Evan so hard over his cooking that I nearly dropped my fork from laughing. "Bro," Jordan had said, poking at a particularly dry chicken breast. "Did the chicken die of dehydration before you cooked it?" Evan took it like a champ. "That's it," he'd said. "You're cooking next time." They cooked together the next night. Some nights, I'd catch Jordan watching us, me and Evan, with this expression that was hard to read. Like he was trying to figure something out. Maybe how he worked. Maybe how he lasted. Maybe whether he could ever believe in something like that for himself. One night, after Evan had fallen asleep on the couch, Jordan asked me, "So, did you two always know?" "Know what?" "That you'd end up like this. Together. Like, actually happy." It caught me off guard. "God, no," I said. "We were both a mess when we met. Honestly, I think we just decided to stop running." Jordan was quiet for a long time. "I don't think anyone's ever stayed for me," he said, not quite looking at me. I put down the dish towel. "Well, I said gently. We're not planning on going anywhere. It wasn't all smooth. He tested us, pushed buttons, even tried to run once. But we didn't give up. When he came back, cold, wet, silent, Evan didn't say a word. Just wrapped a blanket around his shoulders and sat beside him on the floor until he finally whispered, "Sorry." And Evan just said, "We all panic sometimes. Doesn't mean we stopped loving you." I could have cried. Maybe I did a little. Eventually, Jordan asked if we'd adopt him. He tried to say it like a joke, like he was testing the waters. But I could see it in his eyes. He was terrified of the answer. Evan didn't hesitate. "Yeah, kid. Of course." Jordan's face crumpled, just for a second. Then he nodded, wiped his eyes like it was no big deal, and said, "Cool." We became a family in the most unexpected way, built from wreckage, but stronger for it. Not every love story starts with betrayal and ends in belonging, but ours did, and I wouldn't change a damn thing.